As everyone comes in, I just want to say hello. Welcome to this week's 30 by 30. We're thrilled to have TBHF legend John Goff joining us this week. For those of you who do not know John, he's a former accountant who saw a huge opportunity in real estate, and now he's, of course, one of the biggest players in that space as the chairman of Crescent Real Estate. So I think a lot of you have been on these calls throughout the year. You know that we start out with some behavioral type questions, and then we open up to the audience. John is open to you asking him leadership questions, and you can ask specific real estate questions. I know we have some people from that space on this call today. Before I turn things over, I want to introduce our moderator who's helped us on so many of these, Joseph Cabrera, a former recipient of ours from UT Austin. We awarded him when he was getting his MBA there. He's a graduate of West Point. He is the founder and host of Professionally Offensive, an awesome entrepreneurial podcast, if you haven't checked it out, and the founder of Cabrera Toro, which does a lot of leadership training and development work. So if you have a question today, if you could just chat me and tell me you have a question, I will then direct Joseph to call on you. You don't need to share your question with me in the chat. He'll just know to call on you. So I also want to thank our sponsor, Messick Peacock. Thank you so much for their support for this 30 by 30 series. And Joseph, take it away. And John, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Meredith. Yeah, thanks, John. Stoked to have you on. So let's just get right into it. What's been your greatest achievement so far?
Well, clearly, I got to say personally, just my family. I just have a wonderful family, 5 kids, beautiful wife. But from a business perspective, which is probably what people want to hear, I would say it would be joining Richard Rainwater, making the decision to join him back in 1986 or 87, actually, when he left the Bass family. I had been working with him while I was at KPMG, and he was my primary client. And when he left the Basses, he asked me to join him. And it was a big risk because I didn't know what I was going to make. It wasn't real clear what all I was going to be able to do, but clearly I felt that I was going to be able to make that transition from public accounting and advisory work to become an investor, which is what I really wanted to do. And I was going to be able to learn from the best.
Yeah, it's great. It's a name too that both of y'all's names are really names that, now in today's entrepreneurial spirit and ecosystem hear a lot of, but I imagine in the early days, even more just, okay, we'll see how it goes. So how about a historical figure, somebody that you'd most like to meet if you had the chance, dead or alive?
Well, I'm sure a lot of people answer this, Jesus Christ. I mean, clearly that would be incredible to be able to meet him. But I have a real passion with explorers, and I don't really know why. It goes all the way back to childhood. I loved reading about explorers, and specifically, I've collected a lot of books on Lewis and Clark, so I would love to meet them. What drove them to explore the U.S. and open up new territories, all the trials and efforts they went through to discover, a broader sense of America and map it. That to me is fascinating. From a current standpoint, one of the most intriguing recent people that I've met and I'm actually working with now is Chris Cassidy. Chris is the only Navy SEAL turned astronaut, and he has spent more time in space than anybody on the planet. Over a year of his life has been spent circling the globe. And Chris now runs our Medal of Honor Museum, which is being built in Arlington. And he is just a fascinating guy with so many interesting stories. And there's actually a Disney movie about him, or a series called Beyond the Stars. And it's not really just for kids, so don't let the Disney label fool you. I recommend it for anybody to watch. It's fascinating.
Yeah, that's impressive. You don't usually, especially for folks who might not be familiar, you go from that special operations Navy SEAL background, astronauts, and going into the stars seems the furthest away, even though they both wear uniforms. So that's really neat. In that same vein, how about public figures? Anybody that you admire or find that's doing some good work out there?
Well, that's a tough one. Some that have recently passed that I was very fortunate to spend time with, Colin Powell. I actually got a call from him one day just out of the blue when he was running America's Promise. And he asked me to come to Washington and tell him what I was doing on the philanthropy front. I had adopted a number of schools through our real estate organization, and he was very interested in the program. So I got to spend a day with him, which was fascinating. Just an incredible guy, great mind, very philanthropic himself. Another one that I was able to spend some time with is George Schultz. What an incredible career and background he has, and just true gentleman. Henry Kissinger, still with us. Got to see him again, actually recently in the last 6 months. And then Condoleezza Rice, just amazing. And I've been able to spend some time with her, not as much as I would like, but, truly admire not only her experience, what she gave to the U.S., her sacrifice for our country, but also just the breadth of her background, being able to be a concert pianist and just an amazing individual. So respect her greatly.
John, I just as a quick ricochet, is that like when you're sitting with these folks, is it less, do you find it's less about the normal things that most people would think to talk to them about, geopolitical things and whatever? It's more of the personal stuff that you're most fascinated with these individuals?
I like starting with the personal stuff, just trying to understand what makes them tick and what made them do and achieve what they achieved, and how they got the direction they did. That's what I like to try to understand. The rest of it, we can see on TV or read about and, watch interviews of, but I really like seeing what makes them tick.
Yeah, very cool. I imagine there's some common threads between a couple of them and probably some random zingers, throughout. How about a treasured possession, something that you really value? I know you mentioned family early on. Is there anything tangible or intangible that you really value?
Well, obviously family, but I don't possess family. They're all out doing their own things and making their own mark in the world. But it's probably the most interesting thing that I have that I really treasure. And as I've grown older, I have embraced sort of with a new passion, is my grandfather's autobiography. This is my dad's father. My dad was born in Mexico along with 9 other siblings, and my grandfather migrated down into Mexico all the way from Tennessee. He actually wanted to ride with Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders, and he arrived on scene on horseback, and lo and behold, he was too young, so they didn't let him join. So he made his way to San Antonio and camped out on the river with his brother for a while, and then somehow they were intrigued with Mexico and trying to collect cattle down in Mexico and bringing them back across the border and selling them. And, they had no money. And so they went down, and it was many, many, many years later. And after meeting a woman down there and getting married and having kids, did they ever come back? And he ended up, he had never really had formal education, but he learned to read and write, I think from family members. And he wrote all of this down, and there's literally no punctuation in all these pages. It's like one run-on sentence, but it's very easy to follow and understand. And the penmanship is just perfect in the beginning. And as he gets older, it gets worse. But it's an incredible story. So that's my most treasured possession. And I'm trying to share it with the family, everyone has a copy of it, but I like to study snippets of it and put it in perspective with what was going on in history during those points in time.
I mean, remarkable. Have you figured out what gave him the encouragement to actually keep those notes along the way? That's not something most of us do. A journal maybe at best, but it sounds like this was a lot more intentional.
I don't know. But for whatever reason, he wanted to record his life, and he literally started, from birth and what he was told about his very young years. And then from then on, it's fairly detailed. And like I say, just an amazing story.
Yeah, it's impressive. Is that something available for the public? Is that just a Goff family reading literature there?
It's not. I've thought about trying to convert it into something that could be available, because I've been asked about it quite a bit, because I've started talking about it more, because it's really interesting. And he met Pancho Villa. He was actually, Pancho Villa tried to recruit him to be his treasurer. He would come in and rob this little farm they had of all their good animals, and they would have to feed the Pancho Villa's soldiers. And so it's all about goes through the Mexican Revolution. So it's very interesting.
Unreal. Love to read that if I ever got the chance. How about a personal model, John? Do you have something that you live by, your North Star?
Well, I'll attack that a couple of ways. One, focus and concentrate on one thing and be the best at it. I've always tried to do that. My focus has changed over the years. But the other thing that I really do is I always have a plan, and I try to work that plan. I keep mine on these little note cards, and it's fairly detailed, but it's got always a very simple theme. And I'm just constantly working that plan. And I actually enjoy that process, even at my age now at 67. The one thing I would share that is a personal, I guess I'd call it a personal motto, something that I go back to constantly, is a book called The Four Agreements. And it's written by Don Miguel Ruiz, who was born in Mexico, educated and as a doctor, had a really bad accident, went back to Mexico, studied under his grandfather, who was a Shama. And it to me breaks down some tenets for life that are very simple. Don't take things personally is one of the four agreements. Always do your best. These sound very simple, but if you read the book, he really brings life to these simple tenets. Don't take things personally. Always do your best. Be impeccable with your word, and don't make assumptions. And virtually every day, one of those comes into play for me, where I think about that, and it helps me in dealing with an issue.
John, I've read that book. I love it. I think, read it multiple times. What's the hardest one for you? I'm just curious. I'm not really supposed to be asking you questions. The first one's the hardest for me. I'll just volunteer that.
Don't take things personally, for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
That, and don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so pre-programmed that way, right? Everything seems personal.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for the recommendation on that, John. I've had a lot of folks recommend that book, my wife included. It's probably why she's better at all those things than I am. So on the topic of where and when are you happiest? What is your sweet spot there?
I would say from an emotional perspective, it's when I see and sense that my family is thriving, or one of my teams, the various business interests we have, when I see them thriving. I love seeing people, prosper and really enjoy what they're doing and reap the rewards and, develop happy families. That is extremely rewarding and makes me very happy to see. From a physical standpoint, it's being outdoors. I love the outdoors. I have a ranch west of Fort Worth, about an hour, that I love to spend time at. I love spending time I'm kind of a homebody. I love spending time there. And we have a, beautiful yard and acreage to enjoy. And then recently I bought, oddly enough, they call them farms, not ranches, but a farm in Africa. And it's in South Africa, and it's in a large game preserve called the Crescent. And we've got all the big five on it, and just recently got back from there. And I have to say, Africa is just It's a place I absolutely love and just thoroughly enjoy my time there. I feel like I get away there, maybe because of the time difference, but also just the atmosphere and the environment and the people. I get away there more than any other place.
Yeah, that's a killer location, John. I had a chance to go down there a few years back, and you're right. The people are so warm, and there's something about that environment that's whatever you thought the rawest environment you could ever go to, and then you go to a place like that, it blows your mind.
It really does. It's just an amazing place.
Man,
and we're located very close to one of the largest canyons in the world called the Blythe River Canyon. And I flew over that by helicopter for the first time. It's just stunning. It's amazing. And it's 5 minutes from our door.
Oh yeah, no, it's nuts. I love it. It's gorgeous out there, and the ecosystems that you run into just within a few miles is unreal. How about talent? What talent do you wish you'd like to have?
Love to have more patience. I would love, and I'm frustrated that I've never done this, but I would love to be able to speak multiple languages. I speak some Spanish, but I'm not truly fluent. But I would love to be able to speak multiple languages. I'm always admire people who are able to, speak a number of different languages. And I love to play the guitar, but I would say I'm average or poor at best. But it really does enable me to escape and just do something with my hands that, is fun. I'd love to be better at the guitar.
Do you have what's the first song you try to learn to play?
Oh, anything Neil Young.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's good. And when you can nail it, it's usually 2 to 3 chords in his song. So you can usually let it rip.
Yeah, it is. But if you really try to get his picking down, it's quite unusual. And some of it's easy, some of it's not so easy, but
yeah. Start off on the rhythm guitar side. One more question round out. And then again, if anybody's got questions, I know we have a few here loaded up. So just please shoot Meredith your hand there. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Well, I mentioned patience. I wish, and I'm told this by my family a lot, I need to sit still more, relax, really learn how to relax. At 67, I'm still not very good at it. And just live in the moment. I'm always thinking about the next move and the next thing. And I'm scared to death to retire because it seems like everybody I know that retires, their wheels fall off within months. So I don't see myself retiring. I love what I do.
While you're on that note, John, how do you, when it comes to that internal thing that just keeps you going, that also what makes you great, right? It probably allowed you to do what you've done. How have you been able to balance that just over the years? Or do you find that what folks are giving you advice about slowing down is actually the right way to go?
I know it's the right way to go, but I'm just not very good at it. I feel like I'm still young. So I still operate at, I think, probably way too great of a pace. At least that's what, my doctor keeps telling me, but I don't know. I think that helps keep me young. I think it's, I like exercising my brain, and I love just, walking the floor and meeting with my team and understand what's going on and try to have spontaneous ideas. I hated Zoom and that whole, I go back on that whole period of all the Zoom calls. I know we're on one now, but throughout that process, we were able to get things done and advance the ball on projects or whatever we were working on. But really not one great idea came out of a Zoom call. Not one actionable, business idea, new investment idea. Just didn't really happen off Zoom. To me, that's interpersonal. That has to be developed on an interpersonal level. And also, it's just so important for the culture.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's something with the chemistry of humans that come together that's something you can't explain happened. So I would agree with that. Well, we'll kick it off to the audience now. John, I think they're rearing to ask you a few questions. So Michael out of Dallas, go ahead, my friend.
Hi, Mr. Goff. Thanks for being here. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Hi, Michael.
Great. So my question is about scaling. What's your thought process on when to expand, and how do you determine what you have delegated personally?
Well, that's a big question. When I started Crescent, it literally started with just me and a yellow pad, and I sketched out an idea and started acting on it. And it was really tough to find people to join the team because at that point in time, real estate was a disaster. And most people that had expertise in real estate were kind of washed up on the beach and ready to go do something else with their life. So I had to find people that, believed in my thesis and my plan and just add them one by one. And I would say, the best advice I have on that front is to overhire at every level. If anything, I probably tried to skimp at times on what I paid. And I think, if you can get creative with ways to pay really great talent, God, I opt for that all day long. So I don't know if I answered your question directly, but there's a real art in selecting talent, that I learned. And I made a few mistakes along the way. But overall,
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks, John. All right, Courtney Gallagher.
Hey guys, sorry for the hat. I have to turn my chipper in today, so I've been chipping all morning.
Yeah, Earth
Get
News.
rid of all that stuff from the freeze. No, thank you, John, for being here. And actually, I'm really intrigued in what drove you to search for, find, and invest in a wild game preserve in South Africa. I ask this because I work with the National Geographic Okavango Wilderness guys that are documenting that the Okavango Delta in Central Africa, and it is hugely important to the ecology of the planet. So I'm wondering what drove you to seek this out and invest in the Big Five.
First of all, it's wonderful you're spending time and energy on that. It's very important. I have a very close friend who's also in the real estate business that is South African. He grew up there. He knows that the laws and that environment really well. And he and I talked for many years about buying a place if it ever came available in the right spot. And during COVID, a family that owned a particular piece of property within the Claseri needed to sell. And, we swooped in and bought it. So, just kind of right place, right time, which is, a big theme in my career. And look, this is not a investment that's going to change my life or anything from a monetary standpoint, but hopefully from a mental standpoint, I will get a lot of benefit out of it. It's it's all about preserving the wildlife in that area. And it's just, I've learned a lot about it. I just spent 3 weeks there, and that could be a whole nother hour discussion, but it was just being at the right place, at the right time, and coming in when, there was somebody selling, because they don't trade very often, these properties.
No, thank you very much.
Thanks, Courtney. All right, Glenn Decker, you're up, man.
Thanks. Hey, John, I was real tempted to pivot from this question when you started talking about South African farms, but with Buffett talking, his famous quote of "be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy," and we look at the macro environment looking kind of shaky in the foreseeable future, but the micro environment of Texas looking very strong. I'm curious how you view whether you need to be fearful or greedy right now.
Good question. Within clearly, I think preempting all that is just being very cautious and careful, and really underwrite the heck out of whatever it is you're doing. But look, I think it's a wonderful time to invest in Texas. Virtually 100% of our population growth last year, all was Texas. If you look at the growth of Texas, it was equivalent to the growth of the population of the U.S. And this state's going to continue to win alongside of other states that have, business friendly environments. And Texas has a lot of land, so I love owning land in the state. I've been a buyer along the way of, what I hope is strategic land, and we have a number of developments underway in the state. So look, I think it's a wonderful time to invest here, in spite of what's happening, on a more macro basis. Look, we may wake up in the next 30 days and find that we're in the middle of a recession, but historically, once you find out you're in the recession, you're probably 2 quarters away from getting out of it. And yeah, it's choppy as heck out there, but overall, I believe, in the country, and I believe in our state specifically. And if you look at the growth in population, even though our growth rate of population is way down, between now and 2030, we're going to have to add in the US about 2.5 times all of Austin, all of San Antonio, all of Dallas, all of Fort Worth, and all of Houston in this country. That's how many people we're going to add if we follow predicted population growth rates, which is way down from historical, but still between now and 2030, that's a lot of people. So where are they going to be? A big portion of those are going to be in these business friendly states, of which Texas is going to be a dominant leader.
Thanks, Glenn. All right. Juan Barrientos.
Yes. Hey, thanks for being here. Can you hear me good? Yes.
I can hear you fine. Thank you.
I have a question professionally and personally, but I'll start with a professional one and kind of give everybody else a chance. Early on, it seems that you knew that you wanted to be a private investor, but you started off in the accounting industry, correct? So it seems from what I've understood that you saw the accounting industry as a way through your private investor endeavors, right? So was it hard, or did you make the decision, essentially, since you have this entrepreneurial spirit, to not create your own CPA firm and essentially find the opportunity to find essentially a base salary to then fund the early starts of Crescent?
Yeah, look, it was very tough to stick with public accounting and with a large firm because they work your tails off. But there is no better way, in my opinion, to learn business, see a lot of businesses run very well and see businesses run poorly and all in between. So I feel like I had a wonderful in-depth education by working in the public accounting field as long as I did. And so I was just waiting on the right opportunity. I didn't really want to stay in that the rest of my life. So that's why I didn't try to think about opening up my own firm, because then I would have been committed to it. So I was really waiting for the right opportunity, with the right client or some other business person I met. I knew that I wanted to be in investing. I mean, it was just finding that right opportunity. And through Richard, I was given that opportunity, and it was just, lightning in a bottle for me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Juan. John, we have one more question on deck. I want to be respectful of your time. Just want to make sure you didn't have a hard stop, even if you're okay answering this last one.
Sure. Happy to.
Great. All right. I think it's Lee Martin or Leigh Martin. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Lee?
Lee.
Hey, Lee, from the Mobile Command Center. Look at that.
That's right. We're sitting out in front of one of our residential construction sites. So yeah, Lee Martin, I'm a director in Houston, Texas. And John, thank you for your time. My question was, we're out in front of a small house. I say small house, it's gonna be a 4,000 square foot house, but small project relative to real estate investments. What was your first ever real estate deal?
The first one we did as part of creating Crescent was buying Mira Vista which was a single family development in Southwest Fort Worth that was foreclosed on by the RTC. If you remember the RTC back in those days, and there was $60+ million invested in it. And we bought it for roughly $8 million. And that was the first transaction we did. That particular deal didn't really fit perfectly in the REIT, but it was fortunately small enough that we embedded it in the IPO when we went public in 94. But the first really big dominant, deal that I was able to pull off was buying the Crescent in Dallas, which had been built by Carolyn Rose Hunt and completed in 1986. And in my opinion, still one of the best projects in the Southwest, if not all of US. Philip Johnson design, and we were able to buy it, at the time at a fraction for what it was built for. So, again, all about timing, but that's why we named the company Crescent. And that was and will still be my favorite deal of all time.
Cool.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Carolyn Rose Hunt was one of our first female inductees. I'm sure you're aware of that, John, but
Yeah.
small world.
Wonderful lady.
Well, Joseph, great job today. John, thank you so much for making time for this today. We're so proud that you're one of our members, and it's always nice to talk with you. We have Paul Hobby as our next 30 by 30. I encourage everyone to sign up and look forward to seeing everyone on the next one. Good to see everyone, and thanks again, John, and thanks again, Joseph. You'll have a good one.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
John.
Bye-bye.